Disclosure, I play Rhythm Heaven all the time for no reason.
Hello and welcome to episode 33 of HardcoreGaming101.net's top 47,858 games of all time podcast, where we objectively, definitively, and scientifically rank the games you nominate. My name is Xerxes, and when I woke up this morning from unsettling dreams, I found myself changed into a monstrous rad roach. My panelists today are...
I'm Carl.
I'm Bominator.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jonathan Holmes.
Great to have you aboard, Jonathan. Thank you for that. He's our extra special guest for the show today.
Not special. I feel like everyone kind of knows me already, but doesn't really know me that well or like me that much. So it's just like,
I disagree.
Oh, that's fine.
I disagree. I think you've got friends here and among our listeners. So
really,
all right. Yeah, sure. All right. So on this podcast, we have 3 rules. Rule number 1. All rankings are final, official, and scientifically accurate. Rule 2, you can nominate one game at a time via iTunes or Stitcher. Just pop it into a 5-star review because we are attention whores. Rule number 3, you can nominate games that have already been nominated. Just don't nominate games we've already ranked. You want to see for yourself which we've nominated? Check it out, bit.ly/47kgames. Okay, the next game we are ranking is The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, which was nominated by @AlbertArtDavis on Twitter. This game was developed by Nintendo EAD and published by Nintendo for the Super Famicom, Super Nintendo. Its earliest known release date and territory is November 21st, 1991 in Japan. That sounds like a very long time ago, but doesn't feel like a very long time ago.
Well, if you think about who you were when you first played it, if you're anything like me, you wouldn't even recognize that guy now. I mean, that was a lifetime ago when you really take yourself back. But it's always been around. Like, A Link to the Past has not gone away in any substantial sense. It's got a sequel, 3 years ago or something? Between Worlds?
Crazy.
Yeah, people still love it.
It was a long time ago, but I still remember logging into Usenet on my 44K modem to register my discontent with this purple-pink hair in the game. Register my discontent around the globe.
And that was when Link was a relatively new character. This was his 3rd game total. So there wasn't such a huge precedent that he always had to be basically just a Tolkien elf ripoff. He could be a pink-haired fella, but you were not into it, even then.
No, I don't think I care.
So, the official art never put him with pink hair, did it? Or was it in the manual he has pink hair?
I don't think so. If I remember correctly, they've been very open about the fact that they made his hair pink just so it would stand out better against all the browns in the game.
You know how much we need to see his hair.
Yeah.
Without Link's hair, the whole illusion is gone. You know, like the suspension of disbelief is just out the window because I can't see his hair.
Yeah, that is ultimately my one criticism with Ocarina of Time. Frankly, is they don't do enough with the hair. He does not look like he has been frequenting a hot topic or anything.
And he never takes his hat off that whole game. He wakes up with his hat on, right?
Yeah. Mario loses his hat on the N64.
Mm-hmm. Well, to be fair, it is kind of a nightcap, you know? Like, he just happens to wear it during the day. I think that's the weird part.
He never gets out of his
He looks like he just stepped out of, the night before Christmas or something. Like, he's always wearing that thing.
Well, in Link to the Past, it's really just one really, really, really long day for Link. Like, he just gets up in the middle of the night. It's like, oh, I gotta go save my uncle and stuff. And they're just like, well, now we gotta do this. And it's like, oh,
keeps
my
whipping
God,
back
I
and
just
forth
sleep.
in the dark world, light world. It's all messed up. It's like, when does he get to sleep? I don't know.
He turns into a pink rabbit. I just figured out the hair thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only way they could make it make sense.
Thank you. Yeah, that's plausible.
That pink rabbit thing makes very little sense in the context of the game. Very little sense. The inner spirit of Link is a little pink fluffy bunny.
Okay, so this is the 3rd Zelda game.
Mm-hmm.
It's the 2nd real Zelda game. Like, Zelda 2 is kind of not really a Zelda game. It was a crazy... No, I like Zelda 2. It's ridiculously too hard. The combat is crazy awkward, but it's a cool game and everybody should play it. But it's not like, if you don't play one of the Zelda games, like, that's the one. That's one of the early ones that you might want to consider skipping.
Leaving out the CDI games.
Right.
Those
Which are
those
really not Zelda games. Yeah.
I always do think it's kind of weird how Nintendo has this pattern. You have this first game that kind of sets up the concept, and it's kind of rough. You have the sequel that just goes in a completely different direction. That's always kind of divisive. And then you have your third game, which is the first game, but better in every way.
I mean,
happened with Mario, happened with something else.
Interestingly, it didn't happen with Metroid. They just went straight from Metroid to Metroid again and Metroid again.
Metroid 2 is the most weird Metroid.
Yeah,
though.
I think they definitely did it with Metroid. Yes.
You can technically count Star Fox 2 if you want.
Huh, I guess you could, even though Star Fox 2 never came out.
I mean, Link to the Past. I mean, we were discussing off recording because we're crazy. That this game is old, but also it used to be pretty much like a game that almost every single gamer in existence had played, and we've probably moved past that point now. So we actually have to reiterate what it is.
It's kind of like now it's Ocarina of Time that everybody has kind of played, and even that is fading now. It's I don't know what it is now, like Schmenchen or the Wim Wam or something, whatever they call them now. The interesting thing about this game is, like, as we said, like, it's not, this is before really the Zelda thing was nailed down. This is kind of the game that did the nailing.
Yeah.
Right.
And, so it's like, it defined the traditions in the sense that it made them into traditions in a lot of ways. And it's really good. It's got this light world, dark world thing. Like every Zelda game has to have some kind of gimmick now. It's the first one to have a gimmick. And this one is, as we were talking about, the Pink Rabbit. Who wants to get into a little bit like
the lore?
No, the opposite of that. What's
the gameplay?
I guess it's hard to explain because it is just top-down Zelda, but there really aren't that many top-down Zeldas. So
yeah, I would. I could hazard an attempt at that. It was the first one to integrate kind of a dialogue-heavy story at times. So that was one of the first it did for the series. There's various characters who you actually talk to. There's a uncle who dies at the spoilers. He dies at the end. And,
I love that uncle. He's just so amazing. Like, just offhand, real quick. What was the plan with the uncle? Like, because, the start of the game is, the uncle goes to save the world. He gets about 8 meters and falls over and dies.
Immediately dies. All right, now it's time to hand this over to my much more capable nephew.
Who we just told in bed and he'd be back tomorrow. Like,
and they only have one bed in that house.
Oh,
anyway,
it was ye olden days,
That's fair. I'll accept that
they had to stay in the same bed. So
yeah,
that's all it was. Olden
I'll
days.
accept it.
Yeah, it was the first game in the Zelda timeline for a little while. Speaking of which, it was a.
Oh boy, if you want some fun, go read that timeline.
Oh no, yeah.
I don't think even Nintendo is sure if that timeline is right. I think they've gone back and forth on that.
That's the thing. It's like it's about as meaningful as if you create a Mario timeline. It's like, where does like Mario's Picross fall into this? It's like it doesn't matter. It's not.
It's funny you should mention that. Tom Hewlett, who worked at Konami and made some Silent Hill games that were very controversial, he emailed me like last year and was like, "I made the Mario timeline. Will you post it on the website?" I'm like, "Of course, Tom." So it's up there. It's huge. It is a huge file.
Does he include like the spin-off stuff, like Mario's Tennis and?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like you should link this somewhere for our viewers because I think they need to see this, and so do I.
I'll send you the link for sure. It's up on the website, destructoid.com somewhere. But back to Link to the Past. I'm so sorry. Got so excited.
So. Is this the game? If you were to recommend somebody to play like a classic Zelda or a classic styled Zelda, is this the one you'd point him to, and why? If so,
I am such a stickler for knowing who I recommend things to because I truly believe taste is subjective, and it's very hard to make a list of games that's truly scientific. So I really hats off to you guys for
as much as that goes against the very conceit of the whole podcast. I respect your viewpoint. Let's just say this is a person who can handle playing an old game and would like a kind of action-heavy action RPG.
Sure.
They would like Zelda. Which one would you point them to? Is it this one or
if they are like Undertale fans, I say Link's Awakening. If they are like Skyrim fans, I say Link to the Past. So if you're like bread and butter, you're serious, but of course it's a cute game because it's of that era. But still, it doesn't get too surreal and break your suspension of disbelief with like a talking alligator and stuff like that as a Link's Awakening does. Then I say Link to the Past. But if you're someone who wants things goofy and surreal, then I usually put a Link's Awakening on the Game Boy above Link to the Past. I think they're kind of tied in my world.
I do think that because Link's Awakening came after, they were like, okay, Link to the Past, let's just cut out a few things that didn't work, add some things that we want, and that's it. That's Link's Awakening. Go, go, go. Like,
in terms of gameplay. But in terms of scenario, Link's Awakening it's practically an Animal Crossing game. Like, it just goes completely off the rails. And eventually, spoilers, at the end, you talk to a giant flying whale who says, oh, you're just dreaming, and then you just wake up. It's really weird. Link's Awakening.
It's a great game. I think that this game, the story is, this is obviously one of the first, as you said, the first Zelda Link games to really tackle the story. But at the same time, it's a very, very light, very basic story. It's like, gotta go get some amulets, I gotta go rescue Zelda, but actually I gotta go rescue these other princesses who never show up in another game, I don't think. It's not like, there's not too much going on.
Well, I mean, Zelda 2, if to the extent we count it, right, is like, it does have like the villagers and like it has Iron Air and all that stuff.
Yeah, but not to be a stickler, but I'm standing by my point. This is a time to defend your points and be tough with you guys. Right?
Well, in the sense that it's like a top-down Zelda game where the only people you talk to aren't like hermits in caves.
Yeah, there's a little town in Zelda 2, and then, Zelda gets kidnapped, and then she gets saved, and then she gets kidnapped again, and then you have to talk to the princesses.
The Triforce of something.
Yeah, there was quite a few cutscenes. You talk to Zoras for some reason for a while, and then get their slippers. They're very simple cutscenes, but they were, in fact, moving a story along, which was kind of a first, I think.
Much more so than the other Zelda games. This one had a lot of, like, cool but superfluous stuff to collect and do. Like, it was heavy on the side quests if you want to get all like the pieces of the heart and stuff like that. And I don't know side quests, but like it was a lot more involved than that. I mean, that existed from the beginning.
Do you remember some people still cry about the kid who was a tree, I think, in the Dark World, and then you bring him back. That was the cutscene-y, touchy-feely time, and then you bring him back to life, but that makes him dead, and then you get a flute from him?
Yeah, I hated Flute Kid. Freaking stupid. Like, everyone who goes to Dark World, they go to Dark World, and they're like, oh, I'm a monster, or I'm a thing. And he's like, oh, I can't play the flute, now I'm dead. Like, I mean, what happened here?
That poor kid.
On top of that, you've got, like, the shovel and the feather and the hook shot and all these other things that are, like, staples of... I mean, where would you be without the shovel?
The hook shot's brilliant. That's a fantastic piece of kit.
Yeah, it was. And that was a first for that. Then the whole level, speaking of cutscenes, I'm really harping on my point, where you find a girl, and you're like, oh, a girl, you must be in trouble. I have to save you. All girls are in trouble in Zelda forever. And then you lead her around, and she's like, that's not it. And you lead her somewhere else. She's like, no. And then you have to put her under a lamp or something. No, I'm sorry,
you have to
window.
break the ceiling.
Yeah, and then she's like, I was a demon. Total cutscene magic. I was like, whoa, story has been told. My mind's blown. Yeah.
There are a lot of cool set pieces in the game. Not a lot, but there are quite a few.
I do appreciate this game is somewhat more of an actual living world.
Yeah.
Like the first Zelda game, it was just this big open area with crazy old people hate you live in caves. 2 was just this big stretch of land, like the occasional town.
Mm-hmm.
But here it just feels like an actual world, like places you can visit, and it feels a little bit more cohesive, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. This was when Nintendo was getting heavily influenced by Itoi, who made Earthbound with them. And they wanted to get some of that quirk pretty hard. And that slight, is this a joke or is this just incredibly weird and cute feeling? And they pulled it off.
You think that was definitely that was direction among the developers and the producers?
That's what I've read.
Or whether it's a translator thing.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Well, some of it is just hardwired into the game, regardless of how the dialogue is done. My understanding is, in reading some of Clyde Mandelin over at Fangamer, his stuff about the thinking at Nintendo at the time and their influences, just how much they loved Itoi and how hard they pushed to get him to keep making games with them. I see more and more of his touches, or at least the influence from him in all the games from that Super Nintendo era. They really loved him. That's how it looks.
It is. I mean, it's funny that I'd never heard that before, but it rings true in as far as I can tell. That does feel like this is one of the early games where that has that sort of whimsical touch to it, and it became a very standard Nintendo thing. I do want to say, like, I feel like there's also a lot of Dragon Quest that we see in here, not in the terms of the gameplay, but in terms of, like, you've got like the little. They're not really like side stories or even side quests. It's more like just little characters who tell like a really tiny story. And much more so than, I would say, even the Mother series, at least at that time. The original Mother has some little things in there, but it's really very focused on the story of the characters. But when the Dragon Quest games, especially as they went on, I think that and they have this to this day, where it's like they're just like little, and they're always these usually kind of bittersweet little stories about little characters in the world. And you'll talk to them and they'll tell you a little bit, like, you know, kind of overshare a little bit. And that kind of gives you this sort of like whimsical, but sort of like, you know, it's got this, you know, narrative sweet and sour thing going on.
Absolutely.
Like with the Flute Kid, and like, you know, you've got like the is it the Dwarf Brothers, and there's like
their house is all broken down. There's a weird man sitting in the desert with a sign that says something like "Don't talk to me" or "Don't notice me." And then he turns out to be an important character.
That is very Earthbound, there. That does.
Yeah, but it's very Dragon Quest too. And as you may know already, Itoi absolutely loved Dragon Quest. He like brought a Famicom over to get other people to play Dragon Quest. He was that guy for a while.
Wow, I did not know that either.
Yeah, he was. From what I have read, he wasn't necessarily into all video games that much, but Dragon Quest was like huge in his life, and it was just huge in Japan at that point too.
Yeah,
what with the Toriyama connection and all that, sucking people right in.
Yeah, and I think that stuck with the Zelda series to this day, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. There's all these weird little vignettes that you get in every one of these games as they go on. Even in like something like Triforce Heroes, which may be like the case of like a weird little town that takes place in, for all the things that are wrong with that game. And I think
it definitely had the very interesting personality, willing to take risks by putting Link in a cheerleader outfit and even a Zelda outfit, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Definitely had its charms.
I have a friend who's got a very young daughter. She's like 4 years old, and she was over at my house and was like, video games, what do you got this? And I was like, I had a Super Nintendo hooked up, and she was like, oh, I want to use that. And I was like, okay. So I was like, well, am I going to pop in here for a young kid? So I popped in Link to the Past, and that was like the most interesting 45 minutes I've ever seen of like a 4-year-old playing a video game, because like she left the house and then just wandered around in a circle around the house and was just blown away that she could like the world was like so alive and was like reacting, and there was like these green guys and they would chase her around and she's like, I don't want to hit them. It was perfect. Never even made it to the castle, never crossed the bridge, never did anything productive.
I think that kind of the first third of the game might be the strongest. It kind of spirals a bit out of control of their design as you get further into Dark World, because it gets more and more difficult to work out how or where you're supposed to actually go where you need to be. And the dungeons start to unravel a bit. They get kind of just big and just big.
And there's some weird, which I think I'd actually like to see more of in the series. Like, what do I use this weapon for now? If I remember correctly, there's a wand you get that can make blocks or elevators. And you're like, do I use that? And I think I just fudged my way and sort of broke the game. My sequence broke a little bit and did stuff I wasn't supposed to do in order to get through some of those levels towards the end, which maybe they intended. I'd have to look into it, or whether I did in fact break the game. But that was sort of fun to be able to go off script a little bit for a Zelda game. That doesn't happen as much these days.
It's true. They have to. I mean, the more complicated they get, the more scripted they kind of have to be.
Yeah.
Which is a problem with a lot of different kind of games. I say we move on to ranking this one. Does everybody have the list up?
Yes, we do.
Mm-hmm.
I can sort of. Oh yeah, I got it. It's number 1.
I don't think it should. Definitely top 10, I would say.
Yeah, I'm not far off from number 1. I'm willing to entertain the idea. I think it's definitely. I personally would put it. I would personally put this at number 1. I'm probably not going to win that fight. At the very least, I'm putting it above Metal Gear Solid.
That sounds fair. I agree with
Metal Gear
that.
Solid is an interesting one because the deeper you go into Metal Gear Solid, the more you realize it is actually basically linked to the past in terms of every element of it.
Elaborate on that point, please.
Yes.
If you want me to, but if you think it's designed as a top-down game, it is quite literally going from point to point to get items to unlock new areas that you go through. Each area culminates with a boss often solved either through something that you have or it gives you something to get to the next area. It's all broken out in these specific regions. You unlock things to move quickly between different areas. The enemies all respawn. They chase you around when they catch you. Like, there is so much in that game that is basically, hey, this is basically modern Zelda.
Huh? I always thought it was just Pac-Man with guns.
Exactly, which is pretty close.
I mean, there are other Metal Gear games that predate this.
Yeah, but I would say Metal Gear Solid is the most Link to the Past-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I'll defend Cal on that one. But they all basically come from Pac-Man. Pac-Man is everything. Is Pac-Man going to be your number 1? Have you decided that already?
That's actually...
somebody has to nominate.
Yeah.
Oh, I will.
Oh,
right now, just for the to properly populate the theater of the mind here. The top of the list that we have right now is Super Mario 64, Super Mario Brothers 3, Doom, Metal Gear Solid, Lode Runner Online, Devil May Cry, Earthbound, Bionic Commando, Toe Jam, and Earl.
I mean, the short of it is, I've got to agree. There's no way it's going kind of below Devil May Cry. Anywhere below that region, it's not happening, kind of. So
I personally would put this, like, you know where I'd put this. I think it could easily wind up above Doom.
What?
Doom is a fantastic thing. I am playing Doom right now, in fact. I enjoyed, well, not as I'm sitting here talking. That would be kind of a dickish thing to do. Doom is great. Doom is also a game where you can get lost looking for a blue key for 20 minutes. Wandering
but you
through
get lost in Link to the Past.
Yeah, you can get lost for like 2 hours.
But being lost in Link to the Past is way more fun than being lost in Doom.
In a way, but there's a point where you're like, how do I get another jar? How the hell do I get it? What do I need a jar for? Why is the jar so important? That kind of thing.
The game gets to a point where it's like, here, take this hammer. All right, cool. Now what do I do? I don't know. Just go figure it out. It's like, all right, I've got to go find a nail. There's a nail somewhere on the map, and I must hit it with this hammer.
But, I mean, there's other things to do with the hammer in Doom. The puzzle you solve in the midst of being lost is, oh, look, the pinkies respawned. Oh,
I think even the creators of Doom would agree on that.
That's not what Doom is about. Like, Doom is not trying to...
No, it's not. But it winds up being that way anyway if you're not playing at an expert level, which I'm going to go ahead and admit now. Not at an expert level at Doom.
Well, I'm just saying, like, Doom isn't trying to provide you with, like, any kind of extra stuff. It's like, it's the blue key, and it's the blue key. It opens the blue door. It's like, that's what it does. It's like, there's no... You're supposed to find your way around the level and survive. Also, just in terms of, like, innovation... well, I mean, I guess maybe Doom isn't. Doom is almost more of a technical achievement in a lot of ways than it is a game design achievement. Although the level design is very solid, we did complain about the level design of the last 2/3 of Link to the Past does get a little bit weird.
I didn't complain. I love it. Secret breaking, being confused, so fun.
The interesting thing is I don't play this game a lot, kind of because I like to approach it every. Like with a big gap, so I kind of forget what to do. And so every time I played it, a lot of points where I'm just like getting lost. And not lost, but like trying to figure out like, what am I supposed to do here? What I can't remember. Like after the Master Sword, which is one of the coolest little parts of the game. Like it's a cool, very Disney-esque almost scene with like the little forest creatures romping away and stuff. But after that, like
quick segue. I can't help but share this. I used to have a save of Link to the Past where you go to the Lost Woods to get the sword, because that's the only time you get to hear the music before the Lost Woods lights up after you get the sword. There's special music that plays that I love so much that I kept a save aside just for the music. I would just like listen to it and feel good.
And the music is excellent. I mean, this is Nintendo firing on all cylinders in the Super Famicom era. So, okay, I'll make a peace offering here. I'll say right below.
Right below.
You give it
at the top. That's
Metal Gear Solid.
You're above Metal Gear Solid or below it?
Below. I would say below.
Below. Interesting.
I would say Metal Gear Solid is more important to game design in the future than Link to the Past kind of was. I would also say that there are other Zelda games that are like Link to the Past that you could play and get a lot of the same stuff out of. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Metal Gear Solid, that's kind of like the crystallization of the Metal Gear Solid series.
I still have to put it above Metal Gear Solid. Cal, where do you think?
Oi. You know, I'm sort of swaying because the problems I would have with Link to the Past are kind of more because it was made in 1991. Like, it's going to really struggle for this game to purely, in like a physical sense, beat Metal Gear Solid, because Metal Gear Solid was several years later on more powerful hardware, so it could kind of get away with more.
It is very 1991. There's a lot of kid and play in there that I feel like kind of doesn't age very well. A lot of,
I mean, there's like little weird things in Link to the Past. Like, you can actually, I'm pretty sure you can drag your system to a halt if you hit enough grass at once and stuff. It's kind of like, whoa, that was...
There's also that weird secret room for the contest winner thing, right?
That was great that they stuck that guy's name in it. That was so cool.
It's so impossible to find that like only that guy would know. They told him, and it's like...
Yeah, you have to bug out the game. It's the error crashing room. If you somehow break the game, you'll go to that room.
So below or above Metal Gear Solid? You're saying above?
On a personal level, I prefer Metal Gear Solid. I'm sorry.
Is it time to get the coin?
I would probably lean more to Metal Gear Solid, because I think that Metal Gear Solid is, as you said, the kind of... This is great Metal Gear. This is like the best Metal Gear. I'm really not sure if Link to the Past is the best one, because I like Link's Awakening more. I think Link's Awakening is better.
I think I've slowly kind of maybe turned that corner, so I'm just warning you guys. There's going to be a lot of Link Awakening fighting on my end, and maybe also for Ocarina of Time, if this is where we wind up putting Link to the Past. But with that proviso, and if Jonathan's okay with it, because he's our guest and we want to make him comfortable, we could
proviso.
Metal Gear Solid.
Just keep saying proviso if you want me.
Borrowing from our friend Satanga, who was not with us tonight.
Pillow of a word. Oof, comfy proviso.
What do you think?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, what does my opinion count for anything? I mean, I don't like Mario 64 like at all. Don't like it. Mario 3, it's good. Doom's pretty fun, but I can play it for like 10 minutes and feel like, got it, done. Don't need any more Doom right now. Metal Gear Solid 1, don't like it. Boring. Don't want to do it. Don't want to do those things. Not interested in the problems to solve. Just lying around under some like grates, waiting for a guy to like go do something else. No, thank you. So for me, number one, Link to the Past, number one.
Okay, so you're for the topmost vote then.
Oh yeah.
So whatever. So we kind
of got 2 above, 2 below. Do you want to coin toss this one? I think it's the fairest way to do it.
There's 5 of us, right?
Bob is here.
And he did play this game as like what, a 2-year-old? What did he say?
Man, you're like,
I'm gonna say 3 to 4. Games. So I'm sorry, nostalgia's hitting me here. I got to put it above.
All right,
and that decides it.
Why'd you give him the keys, man? All right, that's all we can do.
That decides it. So
like the cutscenes in Metal Gear Solid, though, they're funny.
Yeah,
those are the good parts.
Yeah, I complained about those, so I don't agree on anything.
I don't think they're like good, but they're fun, funny good.
I think that's a lot of Kojima's work can basically be described. I don't know if it's good, but it's fun.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. So, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, goes right below Doom, right above Metal Gear Solid.
All right, so the next game we're going to talk about is R-Type for the arcade and pretty much every other system ever made, I believe. What year was R-Type released? 1987 in July, apparently. And that would be an arcade release. They never get those exactly right, so I wouldn't be 100% sure.
Yeah, according to Wikipedia, this was July 1st, 1987 in Japan for the arcades, and then ported to, honest to God, every single thing. I don't think it ever got a Famicom port, now that I think about it. And it definitely
if I remember correctly, port. Not to butt in, fellas. I was just thinking about R-Type. So I couldn't help but come right over and tell you that when I first played R-Type, it was on the PC Engine.
Yeah.
I knew a guy from Japan. He didn't speak any English, but he wanted friends. So he somehow got me to come over to his house. I think he just beckoned me with Japanese video game magazines that had Mega Man 2 in it, even though Mega Man 2 wasn't out yet. And I was just there, just so alive. I don't think I've ever been so alive as I was in that strange boy's basement playing R-Type for the first time. And because the PC Engine was so hot in Japan, it was like doing as well as Famicom for a little bit there, I don't think they wanted to let one of their killer apps, which was R-Type, the PC Engine version of which was so massive, it could only fit the first 4 levels of R-Type. They couldn't even fit the whole thing on the Who card. That they wouldn't let R-Type on the Famicom, is my understanding. It was such was the tightness of the PC Engine and the R-Type brand at the time. It's a real killer app.
Irene, the developer, they made a lot of PC Engine games.
Yeah. There was the PC Engine was a big time shooter / sexy sci-fi confusion. It was a very teenage console, whereas the Famicom was definitely leaning more towards the whole darn family. But PC Engine, like, no, we're putting an engine in this. Boobs. There's a boob game on the PC Engine. At least 2. Played them. It's been a while. And R-Type, I don't know if you remember how much the sexual innuendo is just dripping.
Oh, yeah.
In a very creepy H.R. Geiger way. Not like a sexy, comfortable way, but like a real body horror, I'm a teenager and I hate my genitals sort of way. You know that feeling. We've all been there.
Sure. It's got a very, it's the most Aliens, not Aliens game that isn't an Aliens game maybe ever.
Exactly. Such is the way. Even more than Contra, I would say. It is Aliens without aliens. The first boss is just an H.R. Geiger alien with a whippy tail and everything. And then the second level has a penis boss that goes in a vagina boss. So Geiger. And it's just everything is alive and quivering and hates you. And then in level 3, it's just like, and then you shoot a big battleship because they wanted to impress you with graphics.
But it's a very, very big battleship.
It's huge. It's the whole darn level. And then you just shoot its engine at the end, I think.
Yeah, you only have to get a few shots off to kill it.
Yeah, it was a fun boss. I like R-Type a lot. I don't think it has aged quite as well as it could have if it were a little bit more or less of a graphic showcase at the time and more of a real innovation, because beyond the bit you can shoot out, which was pretty innovative at the time, but other than that, there wasn't really much to it that made it different gameplay.
Well, what they really messed around with was they made it incredibly memorization heavy. I think it's possibly the most memorization heavy shmup that's ever existed.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. Of course, a lot of shmups from Treasure and whatnot have come along where memorization certainly helps, but I think what you're saying is in R-Type, you just need to do it according to the script. And unlike some Treasure's better games where following the script is helpful, but you can also improvise. And in fact,
Treasure has a plan for you, and they let you mess around if you make a mistake. In R-Type, you make a mistake, that's it. You just know you're dead. Bye.
Yeah, I remember. I can't remember which level it is. It might, in fact, be that battleship level. You just have to hide in the same spots for the whole level. You just get from place to place. It's almost like a cover shooter in that way, at least for that level. You just stay there.
I do want to say real quick, I feel that R-Type is maybe slightly fairer than its kind of rival series Gradius. Mostly because you're not absolutely 100% screwed if you don't have a power-up on hand.
True.
It's going to be really hard, sure, but maybe not impossible.
Well, not to sidetrack too hard, but old school Konami was just constantly about you need to save the power-ups because you're already so good at this game that you save your level 3 boomerang if it's Castlevania we're talking about, or save your spread shot if it's Contra. And then if you die and you come back with your basic weapon, you basically should just start over. Which they wanted you to do because a lot of those games started in the arcade, so saw that arcade sensibility. But R-Type, definitely more fair than that. You could survive based on just the charge shot, at least for a little bit, even if you didn't have anything else going for you.
Well, because R-Type is it's per stage. It doesn't when you die, it kind of just like you get kicked back. You can still get the power up you need, rather than Gradius, where you die halfway through the stage. And it's like, well, you're not getting any more power ups, so I hope you're good at dodging everything.
Oh yeah, because Gradius had that weird, like you have to fill your belly on those fire engines that you get out of random Goomba type guys you shoot, and then if you get full enough, then you can get a laser. But only if you really stuff yourself, and then you poop out a laser after your stomach's bulging out. What a weird power up system that is.
I do think that the option is very, very unique because you fire it out and it activates a different ability. Like it's not when you're attached to it, you fire one shot type and you shoot it out, and then it's a second different alternate shot type.
Right.
You got all this extra choice, but most of the time the choice is you're supposed to do what they wanted you to do at that segment, otherwise they'll probably just die.
Yeah, if you've got exactly what the script is supposedly handing you, you'll have exactly the tools you need to get through the level at that point. And if not, take the Gradius route, and you may as well just slap the reset button at some point.
Yeah.
If you don't have those
I assume really, really skilled people better than me might be able to do like a no-bit R-type run and just be good.
That would be
You do have to be good. I honestly was not good. I think I got to the 4th or 5th stage, and I was like, okay, I'm not getting much further than this in this
lifetime. Then you
technically
beat the PC Engine version, because it only had 4 levels. It's all they could fit. So you're, in fact, an R-Type winner. I think the reason I was... As you should. You're a great person. R-Type Final, which we're not going to talk about too much today, I think that's my problem looking back on R-Type, because R-Type Final was so good that it has caused R-Type 1 retroactively to age sort of poorly. As when I play Super Mario Brothers 1 these days, I think, that's all they came up with? Because I've been playing so many ding-dang Mario games since then. I don't know if you played R-Type Final. Wowza. That is hard to top. And when it comes to sexual innuendo, too, they didn't let up on that either. There's the last stage, it's just brown. You're like, what? How come R-Type's just brown now? And in the background, you see a silhouette of a man and a woman, and they just start going at it. That's it. R-Type Final is just, it was all about boning all along.
That's the final R-Type. I mean, is it the final R-Type, or do they keep making them?
Well, then they made, this is off the top of my head, so forgive me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I think they made like a military strategy game, which wasn't a real R-Type game. It was like
that does not sound like a real.
Yeah, they used the R-Type assets. They had them lying around, and they have a big R-Type backstory about the Baido Empire and all that stuff. So they still had some stuff they thought they could use to make money. But in terms of a straight 2D shoot 'em up, which R-Type 1, R-Type 2, R-Type 3, R-Type Delta, R-Type Final, I think that was the 5 of them. They never went back to that after R-Type Final. They made good on the props.
I don't think we're ever going to get another one, sadly, even if it won the final, because Irem is super dead right about now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a shame.
Yeah, this is a pretty solid game. This is 1987, which I think is kind of... I keep forgetting that it's not later than that when I play it. Like, I'm just like, this could easily be 89, 90. Sure. I wouldn't have really known.
Yeah, 87. That is almost Mario's age, right? Or at least Super Mario.
The thing that sticks out, I mean, like, I'm pretty crappy at R-Type, I'm pretty crappy at shooters in general, but of Sega Master System games that supported FM Synth on the Mark III, R-Type might be my favorite. It has fantastic music. And like, the PSD, the standard audio is great, but if you ever get a chance, look at the FM Synth on it. It's fat. It's just a really, really, really good, like, pumped-up shooter soundtrack for something from, like, the late 80s. Game I'm just not so hot at, so I can't say like a lot about it, but it certainly is crude and sexual in a way that you would not expect from a shooter of its era.
That whole era, the amount of growing pains that were going on in terms of emulating film directly and trying so hard to capture the same kind of excitement people had about movies, bring it to video games while cluing in all the people that only cared about high scores and didn't care about human beings at all and didn't care about movies at all. Such a special time that I often miss. Reminiscing with you guys about R-Type has been a lot of fun. And you've taught me to both respect it and disrespect it more at the same time.
We like to do that. I think that's one of our favorite things, is be like, wow, this game's great. Why do we hate it?
Which is like...
And vice versa with stuff like Illbleed.
Yeah.
Illbleed? Still thinking about that.
He's concerned. It'll be a placement for people who have jumped in. We put it at number 34 in the top games of all time so far. So that's exciting. Where would we like to put R-Type, though? Is it going above or below Illbleed?
R-Type 1, huh? Well, it did do a lot to influence the genre, I think. And it certainly has stuck in my head. It evokes a feeling right away. But so many of your games on your list do. So, like Ninja Baseball Batman does as well. So, how can it top that? That wouldn't be fair.
I don't know if it would top Ninja Baseball Batman, personally. I think that's the upper limit. I don't think it's better
than Space Harrier either, obviously. So,
whoa. To me, they're about tied, honestly. That's how much I like R-Type. I really like Space Harrier, too.
I do think that is the range we're looking at. Like somewhere in the between like a Ninja Baseball Batman and something like Ape Escape.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely
wasn't Ninja Baseball Man? Ninja Baseball Batman was also RM, wasn't it? Or am I thinking of another Batman? I could be mixing Batmans, my baseballs. Oh, I might be thinking of Ninja Clowns too. Might be mixing up my ninjas.
Those are two games you never want to get mixed up. Trust me.
Ninja Clowns and Ninja Baseball Batman.
Right, yes, Ninja Baseball Batman is IREM, but it was associated with IREM America also, so that's why you get spun out on. It was their only, yeah. Anyway.
So I could have been more wrong, which is nice for me to not be the wrongest. Well, all right, I'm gonna be a jerk and just looking at your list of fine games. I'm gonna say that R-Type should be under Final Fight and under Advance Wars 2. I think it should be above Lode Runner Online, the Mad Monk's Revenge, but that's number 6, so that's not going to work out. So my vote is for just, play it safe and put it at the bottom.
Down there at the sort of bottom of the top there, let's call it.
Yeah, the bottom of the top.
If you scroll down that list, John, you can actually see there's about...
Oh, I thought that was the end of the list.
Oh, no, we're down
No,
there.
the list is much longer, and it gets a lot
What
worse.
a long list that is.
Yeah, no, we've been at this for a minute.
I apologize for my grave error.
But I don't think R-Type's going to go kind of below Final Fight,
No,
so
I think that's...
the rest of that list is... It won't end up below Sewer Shock as a general rule.
Yeah.
Jeez, there's some great games on this list.
There are. Yeah, the
You
top...
put Blazing Lasers pretty... I would say R-Type and Blazing Lasers should have because they're almost the same game in my heart. I love them both a lot. And that's 62.
The thing about R-Type is that, it was sooner, there was a lot more, they sort of brought a lot more to the table earlier, I think.
True. Yeah, no, they did. Blazing Lasers was another game I played in that young boy's basement, based on Gunhead, which was a live-action adaptation of a manga, if I remember correctly. But I'm pretty sure Blazing Lasers came after R-Type, so it doesn't get as much street cred.
That's right.
Louise, what do you have on this list?
Well, blame our viewers. They're the ones that nominate these things.
What is Rainbow Islands doing? So yeah, my new
What is Rainbow Islands doing? It's a really good question.
That's it. It was a Bubble Bobble sequel with no bubbles. You just jump.
And that's why it's down at the bottom of the list.
It's not. It's higher up than. Well, you're right. It is pretty low. It's higher up than No One Can Stop Mr. Domino. That's madness.
Okay,
It's madness.
let's not talk about Mr. Domino. Let's talk about R-Type.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm just getting
Domino
some
for
bad
like 5
flashbacks
hours.
here.
We had to. That's where it went as a result of that. Okay.
Hard to hash out. When you hashed out, no one can stop Mr. Domino. Very important game.
You're free to. Anyone is free to listen to our Mr. Domino episode because we talked extensively about Mr. Domino.
Absolutely, you should listen to that.
Okay, so let's say I wanted to slot this right between Mega Man 3 and Super Mario Land.
I think that sounds fair.
I got no problem with that.
Wow, that's wild.
It is wild.
It is wild. I was listening to your No One Could Stop Mr. Domino episode just now instead of listening to you. That was a wild episode. That's very good stuff. And I agree with everything you said about R-Type as well. Put it wherever you think is good. I trust you.
Right between Mega Man 3 and Super Mario Land, then.
I like it more than Super Mario Land, for sure.
I sure do as well, but I don't want to get into that. Ugh. Okay. All right. Then let the record show R-Type is officially, for now, because of science, the 32nd best game ever made.
Now, I'll be honest, part of the reason it's there is Mr. Holmes has really sold me on putting R-Type Final higher, so that's going to be an important caveat here.
Man, R-Type Final is so good. Branching paths, I think there's 100 different ships. I think one of them is called the Love Muscle, and it's just like a heart-shaped penis, or a penis-shaped heart.
Put a bow on this show, it is done. That is good stuff.
Okay, so the next game we're talking about is Ninja Gaiden, which was nominated by @Antonio Damase. Is that Damace too? Antonio, if he's Italian, I guess it'd be, yeah. Anyway, Antonio.
Do the accent.
No, I will not. No.
You don't want to be.
I've already I've besmirched every nation in Europe at this point. I really probably got to stop. At Antonio Damase 2 on Twitter. It was developed by Tecmo. It was published by Tecmo for the Famicom, NES, and PC Engine. Its earliest release date and territory was December 9th, 1988 in, I guess, Japan. And
the Engine version was based on the arcade game, though. Yay.
Was it? I think it was. I know the Master System version is completely different.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to hazard an uneducated guess that Ninja Gaiden Arcade is a two-player Double Dragon-style beat-em-up that is slog slow. And
it's terrible.
Basic enemies are based on Jason Voorhees just because they could. And they brought some of those basic enemies back for the NES game. But other than that, the NES games
I believe they were developed concurrently.
I think you're right.
It also came out for the Super Nintendo without any changes. It was just dumped onto a cart with the other two NES games.
They didn't add a couple of colors or something?
I don't think so. I mean, if they did, you can't tell. It still looks...
I'm pretty sure it was sprite redraws with, instead of one shade of blue, it was two shade of blues. Like
it's the ugliest sprite redraws I've ever seen.
Yeah, they weren't very helpful. It's true.
I think it was Chris Kohler who said he just calls it "Get to the Castle" because he just turns the game off after the cutscene where you see the castle. Because after that, it gets really unfair. So.
After that, it gets unfair. It's pretty. Those birds are, I think, the original unfair video game birds of all time.
Being birds, yeah.
Yeah, they hover, which doesn't add up at all. They just stay... I played it again recently, as I felt I should for this show. And there are so many hovering birds and bees and whatnot that they just would not do today. It's a very special time in video game physics where they just thought it would be okay to let a bee just stay in one place until you kill it.
Well, one of the item drops, I swear to God, is a bald eagle. It's just floating there.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you kill bald eagles to get shurikens. That's the game.
or just really, really pointless pickups that are just blue bottles that make you feel good.
I'm just going to drop a hot take here. This game is Castlevania with better controls.
Whoa. That's hot. That is a hot take.
Satang is like screaming somewhere right now.
For me, the key difference the appeal, I would say, of both games is very similar in that you want to be. This was an era where they thought if you want to make people feel like an action star, you have to kill them like a lot. And then they feel so good about themselves when they finally don't die. So you've got this huge life bar in both Castlevania and NES Ninja Gaiden, but like 2 hits and you're dead anyway because everything
it's just
does
there
like
to taunt you. It's not.
Yeah.
Just to make you feel like
You're
you have a
lucky
chance.
if you get 2 hits in. By the end of the game, it's like, oh, you got hit, you fell off a cliff.
Yeah,
like
constant cliffs.
It's just like, it's cliffs. I got to jump in while we're still talking about birds to an extent. I was informed that Hayabusa actually means peregrine falcon. So basically, Ryu Hayabusa is weak to birds. It doesn't even make sense.
or Ryu, however you pronounce it, is dragon, right? Dragon Peregrine Falcon is his name?
Yeah, that would be his name. That is his.
That's like if the British Bulldog was called Bulldog Tyrannosaurus instead. And they just went with. How can you do that? You can't have 2 animal names.
Note to self: change name to Bulldog Tyrannosaurus.
It's like almost as good as Dog's Bower.
Oh, but very few things are Dog's Bower. That's Blue Stinger, right? Oh, yeah, classic.
Dog's Bower is the patron saint of this podcast.
As he should be. So I'm going to say Castlevania 1 is a better game than Ninja Gaiden because Castlevania 1, very meticulous, perfectly crafted in terms of giving the player opportunity to space themselves just right away from enemies, or completely screw up and end up getting murdered. So the tension is always just right for me. It is very much a game about spacing yourself exactly a whip's distance away from enemies at just the right time, so you get them before they can get you. Love that. Ninja Gaiden, you got a very, very short sword, and it's just dumb and mean. Not to say I don't love Ninja Gaiden. The music is incredible. I listen to it all the time. And some of the ideas for the boss designs, the cutscenes, I absolutely love. Still will watch
they're
those
not cutscenes. They're Tecmo Theater, according to the manual.
Yes, they are. And they were very influential on my ideas about a lot of different things.
It couldn't have been the very first game to have some kind of cutscene, could it?
I talked with Ron Gilbert not that long ago, who did Monkey Island, and
Maniac Mansion had something you would call cutscenes.
That's actually the first time it was coined, was for Maniac Mansion, and the game before that David Fox worked on. It was the Labyrinth game. That was actually the first point and click LucasArts game, was Labyrinth, starring David Bowie. Well, not so much starring, but he's in at the end. Anyway, sorry for the tangent. Not the first cutscene.
Well, generally, in terms of it's definitely kind of the popularizer of the whole intro with original art and then outro with original art. There's no doubt that people played Ninja Gaiden and were like, holy crap, it's telling me the actual story instead of just running.
Yeah, it's not all in the manual, and you just have to read it, and you're like, I don't see how any of this syncs up, which is what it usually was in the NES era.
Amusingly, the manual does basically tell you what happens in every cutscene and throughout the game anyway, for some reason.
Just in case.
It's so cool to see it on screen and to have music that was scored for it and everything. It felt fantastic at the time.
It was amazing at the time.
Especially since ninjas were shit hot at the time. Whoa, ninjas! And they're actually ninjaing on screen.
It's hard for kids today to remember this, or to know they don't remember it because they weren't alive yet. But ninjas had only been in pop culture for a couple of years. They weren't burnt out 30-year-old tropes at this point. It was a totally new thing. Yeah, it felt so new. American Ninja, wasn't that the name of the series? Or Ninja Warrior? American Ninja Warrior?
It's a very mustache ninja time period here. The thing that, I just want to point out how weird Ninja Gaiden was at the time. Not only did it have the cutscenes, the cutscenes were in the very anime style, which unless you watched a lot of Voltron or something,
Which I did.
Was not, yeah. Well, yeah. We all. I guess
Constantly.
that's true. Okay, so maybe it wasn't that weird, but you got a lot. I mean, it was not doctored up for the Western audience. I mean, they called it Ninja Gaiden.
Uh-huh.
I mean, what the hell? Like, what are you thinking?
It was
Yeah.
like
No one
like
knew
Hey
anything.
Onkyo
Well,
Alien over
they
here.
didn't
or
translate the
something.
name properly. They just thought they got the word ninja right, and they're like, well, the Japanese name doesn't make any sense. We'll call it Gaiden. And it's like, that means side story. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you can't. I don't fault them for not calling it Ninja Side Story. Nobody would have bought that. They would have looked for the main story and been unable to find it and went home.
Was this the one that had one of the games was like subtitled, like or not subtitled, but it's had like a title something like Ninja in USA? Was that the?
Yeah,
like, yeah.
I
That's
think
one
it
of my
was.
favorite. Yeah, that's one of my favorite game
I
titles.
think that's more to do with the arcade version.
Ninja in USA.
And that's what it was about.
It
You
delivers on
were
its promise.
absolutely, and that's also Ninja Gaiden, as far as I know. At least starts in the USA when you have to
Yeah, so,
kill a guy with a hatchet.
Just to not throw anyone off, the Japanese name translates from Legend of the Ninja Dragon Sword, which is a very descriptive name for the game because the whole game centers around that. And over in Europe, and I think Australia, we got to call it Shadow Warriors, because of course we'd call it that. That makes sense.
Well, if kids read the word ninja, their brains would immediately explode in a violent fantasy that they would enact without delay.
Well,
So-
the thing is, it worked. How many Ninja Gaiden games have they made since then? People were like, "Oh, so exotic, a Gaiden. I wonder what that is." And
I
they'll
think
show
they've
it
made
off.
at least no less than 8 Ninja Gaiden titles.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There was a prequel on phones, I guess, to the NES game that came out not that long ago. I think 5 or 6
Is it
years
just
ago.
that scene where the guy's dad gets killed?
You go and talk to your dad, and then he's like, "I think I'll go get killed now." At the end,
I have to go get the mail, and then, oh my god, the red ninja.
but then he's spoilers for Ninja Gaiden NES. He's not dead. He's like the 6th boss or something. You fight him later. Pretty good story.
Dude,
Pretty good
I don't think I
Jankio.
ever got. I've never finished.
Yeah, good
the
luck
game.
getting to the 6th boss.
It's
I always
pretty
because
friggin'
so
hard.
we gotta mention this because it is going to be time to rank this, and we do have to point out this game has a bug that they knew about and left in.
What?
The whole thing about not continuing in the last, like how it continues back to like the third to last level. Is that it?
Yeah, yes, 6-1 to 6-3 you have to complete in one infamous marathon slog of
Which
insanity.
is why it's called Get to the Castle, and then you can turn your machine off, and because it gets really hard, and then if you die, you just start back off like 3 levels ago. If you die on the boss, you know. If you die on the boss, I think you get to restart with the boss, right? Is it that?
What happens is if you beat a boss in that marathon of rounds, the boss will stay dead once you get back to them after having died and re-clearing the area. So basically,
No way. Really?
yeah, apparently I didn't
Weird.
get that far, but that's what I have read.
I have
that
beaten this game before.
that if
and-
you beat the boss and you die in the bosses that are after that, you get booted back to the start of the sequence. But if you get back up to there, the bosses will be dead. Apparently.
That is weird because if it's a bug as has been claimed, I think it's been claimed by somebody who worked on the series at some point. I think it was the artist. It's on HG 101. It's like
It's
an interview.
entirely possible it was a bug, and then they just went, well, we'll flag the bosses as dead, so they don't have to play them.
What
so they'll
that guy
fix it.
said, and I'm sorry I don't remember his name, but it's up there. It's on hardcoregaming101.com. It's one of our
Maybe you've
very-
heard of it.
yeah, perhaps you've yeah. He says something like it's a bug that we knew about and we left it in because we thought we want this to. It's okay for Americans because they'll just keep bashing their head against it until they beat it.
Yeah, they really hate Americans.
No, they didn't hate it. They thought that like if it were Japanese gamers, are like, well, they're going to get frustrated and quit.
Yeah, they fixed it. In the
Americans just
Japanese
keep-
version, you can continue in the further parts of that level. So
How did I ever beat? I beat this game. I distinctly remember hitting that weird orb in the center of another kind of H.R. Geiger looking boss. We were just talking about those.
You sure you're not confusing with like Ninja Gaiden 2, which is a little bit more doable? It's probably the most doable.
No, I beat them both for sure.
well,
I never beat
beating Ninja Gaiden is a commitment to just repeating the same task over and over and hoping
Yeah.
you get it just that millisecond at the right time, and that you can do it about a dozen times in a sequence, and then you're like, all right, I've beat the level, then I'm never doing that again in my life.
Just to try to get it just right over and over and over again. So that's the kind of gameplay I often get into, and Ninja Gaiden is not dissimilar. So yeah, I beat it. I don't remember that bug, but I'll try it again. I'll report back. So the ranking, we should rank it.
I would put it. This is a tough one.
Yeah,
because I have a lot of affection for this game in a way, even though I kind of.
The highs are highs and the lows are low on this game. It's not,
I mean,
some of its parts.
I mean, part of this thing and this experience is that I feel like they had this game and then they deliberately made it way too hard. Like, they knowingly did it. It wasn't even incompetence. It was just
I beat it, and I was like 10 or something. I mean,
10-year-olds can beat any game in existence. That's not a good metric.
It is true.
Why are they so good?
You've got so many people who just they're like, oh, this game is physically impossible. Yeah, but when I was 10, I just somehow beat it. And
this is true.
You pick it up, you're like 20 or 30, you're just like, I have literally no idea how I could ever even get past the first stage.
You can climb on walls. There's like a, not wall jumping, but it's kind of like a wall.
Sticking.
Yeah.
They call it wall spring in the manual, which is probably...
It is really not springing.
The worst way to describe it, and it just doesn't roll off your tongue at all, but they call it wall spring jump.
Well, it's a nice name, but the reality is you're basically just very wet and stick to surfaces and can't get off them.
It's like those like Velcro wall things.
Yeah.
Like American Gladiators. Yeah.
The best thing Ninja Gaiden 2 did was make you actually climb up and down the walls, and that really helped.
Oh, yeah. Ninja Gaiden 2 should be ranked higher than Ninja Gaiden 1 on this darn list.
Oh, yeah.
If Ninja Gaiden 2 ever makes it, because it was a much more fair, much more just physically enjoyable game to play, where you didn't feel as though... I mean, Ninja Gaiden is like giving public speaking classes to naked people and like trying to help them to be comfortable. It's just the least relaxed time you can have in a video game.
Or like your first day of swimming lessons, guess what? The pool is full of syrup.
Yeah, you're in trouble when you decide to play that game, for sure. Well, I'm going to help. I'm going to throw out that Ninja Gaiden should go right between Rats and I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream.
Wow.
Damn, he's shooting it low. Wow, I thought you were going to
Even I think that's kind of harsh.
Sick burn.
No, it's not a game you want to play.
I agree. Like, it's in terms of recommending this game to someone, I would have to probably not like that person.
Right. So
I just be like, I want to see you suffer for a few hours, so definitely play Ninja Gaiden and try and beat it.
I'm nostalgic for it. I'm playing it again now, like I mentioned, and I'm enjoying the music and the cutscenes. I still love a lot. Right. The boss designs are not clever. It's not like, oh, how did I figure out how to beat that boss? It's like...
You don't like slow walking Hatchet Man?
Yeah.
Well, what's your problem?
Yeah.
There's some really cool designs, yeah.
Real quick, what about between like Shadow Man and Donkey Kong Country 3?
I was looking a little lower than that, honestly.
It is not better than Donkey Kong Country 3, and I don't even like Donkey Kong Country at all. I don't like any of those games.
For me
but
personally,
they're at least well.
Country 3 on this list is like the last good game.
I'd be careful, because I think Team Buddies is fantastic.
Basically.
Oh, I love Uniracers, though. That's a hoot.
Yeah, I'm with you. Uniracers is too low on this list.
Yeah. Oh, I love Mega Man Zero too as well.
It's not scientifically accurate. It's right in the disclaimer at the beginning. It is exactly where it belongs. Even if it got there by coin flip, it's still...
Yeah.
The coin flip is the most accurate thing we have. Like, that genuinely is...
I'm going to put Ninja Gaiden a little bit higher, because I do think the cutscene thing, although it would have been done eventually by somebody else, it just the idea, they had the chutzpah to put this whole thing out to the American market, leaving the bug-in aside. Just the idea of like, we're not going to dumb this down. We're not going to like change the graphics like Blaster Master or change the name to something like more American friendly, although they did change the name, of course. But we're just going to present it as what it is. Mm-hmm. And and they had some kind of, they thought enough of the Western audience to give it to us in the way they did. And without, I mean, look at Contra, right? Contra had like not exactly cutscenes, but it had little like interstitial cool sprite art and some extra animations and other cool stuff, like a little map. And they cut all that stuff out. So they're like, nobody's gonna care. Let's like keep it moving.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah, that's mean. But they didn't do that. And they also didn't give us a 30 guys code in Ninja Gaiden. They said, you can do this.
So I would put Ninja Gaiden right.
Rainbow Islands? You're going to give it the Rainbow Island spot?
No, I'd put it right below, right above Lethal Enforcers. How about that?
I was looking there.
NFL Blitz above, Lethal Enforcers below, or right in between.
Yeah,
I mean, like, put it below NFL Blitz, but that's just me.
Yeah.
I mean, the main thing I think is that this game, I mean, I think it is more the cutscenes and all the little things that aren't the actual kind of overly difficult, punishing game. Yeah, like, we can respect the amount of, like, stuff that it brought to the table, and I think it's okay to place it there. It's just as long as it's like, yeah, but, you know, this game is a game that you played in its time. This is it is
fun.
Game.
It is still fun if you get yourself in that mindset. It just, at the end, it just gets ridiculous. But
it's a game where I seldom say I'm a slave to nostalgia. I like stuff for what it is. I think I'm usually pretty clear about that, but there's no way I'd like Ninja Gaiden if I didn't already love it from when I was a kid. When I play it, it's strictly because I get that kid feeling again. I still do enjoy it for that reason. But, man, I mean, when's the fun part?
Yeah. It's just really punitive, like in a way that isn't enjoyable.
And I love punitive. 1001 Spikes, one of my favorite games ever.
But that's like, it's a very different kind of punitive. I think like that's a contract you are signing. Like the name alone. Like,
what's the fun punitive? Is it called like punishment? Like what is it? Like
we gotta
I find it so interesting that this one, like around level 3 or 4, it's like, wow, I'm actually having fun. And then it's like, well, say goodbye to that because level 5 and 6 is coming. It's like, well, fuck it, I'm on.
Yeah. Okay, so does everybody agree with me then? It sounds like it.
Above Lethal Enforcers.
Yeah. That's cool because Lethal Enforcers is actually not excellent.
No, it's not.
I think they look beautiful together, actually, because I like them for the same reasons.
Yeah.
Like, I like them for what they were thinking, but not what they actually did.
Yeah, they're two games that definitely belong in a museum, but behind, like, bulletproof glass. You know what I mean?
I do.
That's all for this episode of Hardcore Gaming 101's Top Games Podcast. Special thanks goes out to Albert Art Davis and at Antonio Demache 2 and at CIT Stephen Force on Twitter for nominating these fantastic games. And thanks as well to those of you we haven't gotten to yet. We are working our way down the list. We will get to you soon. Thanks also to my lovely co-hosting of Patriots, our special guest, Mr. Jonathan Holmes, our editor, Jeff Rude, our theme song composer and chiptune composer, Muteki, and of course, thanks to the support and feedback of listeners like you. You can support this podcast by making a small monthly donation at patreon.com/HG101. I know I did. You can also help us out by subscribing to at HG_101 and at GC9X on Twitter, or by subscribing to the HG101 YouTube channel, which is excellent, and you should definitely check it out. But most importantly, help us claw our way into the podcasting firmament by getting on iTunes, subscribing to HG101, and giving us a 5-star review. Do it! Or we'll re-release this episode on the Game Boy Advance and add a bunch of superfluous shouts and grunts. Until next week, keep keeping it real.